The cake was pink, perfectly pink, with little sugar flowers that probably cost more than most people's groceries for a week. I remember staring at those stupid flowers while my world collapsed around me. "Rachel, honey, you look a little pale," my mother-in-law said, her voice dripping with that fake concern she'd perfected over 23 years of marriage to David's father. "Maybe you should sit down." I wanted to laugh. Sit down? I was 8 months pregnant, surrounded by 30 women in my living room, and I'd just watched my husband's hand linger on my best friend's lower back for the third time that afternoon. Sitting down was the least of my problems. "I'm fine, Margaret," I managed, forcing that smile I'd been practicing in the mirror for months. The one that said everything was perfect in our little suburban paradise. But everything wasn't perfect. Far from it. The baby kicked hard against my ribs, as if she knew something was wrong. I pressed my hand to my belly, trying to steady myself. Around me, the chatter continued. Discussions about diapers and sleep schedules, and whether the nursery should have blackout curtains, normal baby shower conversations, normal life. Except nothing about this felt normal anymore. David was supposed to be helping in the kitchen, bringing out the appetizers his sister had spent all morning preparing. Instead, he was standing by the sliding glass door, his head bent close to Sophia's, whispering something that made her laugh. That soft, intimate laugh she used to save for me back when we were college roommates, back when I thought I knew her, back when I thought I knew him. I'd been suspicious for weeks. Little things at first. David coming home late with explanations that didn't quite add up. His phone buzzing at odd hours, messages he'd delete too quickly. The way he'd started showering as soon as he walked through the door, claiming he was sweaty from the gym, even though his hair was never messed up. But seeing it here, in our home, at our baby's shower, with guests cooing over tiny pink onesies and debating whether cloth diapers were really worth the hassle, it felt like a betrayal so profound I could taste it, bitter and metallic, like blood in my mouth. "Oh, Rachel!" My cousin Linda grabbed my arm, her voice pitched high with excitement. "I just saw David talking to Sophia by the door. They make such a cute couple, don't they? I mean, if you weren't married to him, of course." She laughed at her own joke, completely oblivious to the knife she'd just twisted in my chest. I nodded, mumbling something about needing more napkins, and escaped to the kitchen. My hand shook as I gripped the counter, trying to breathe through the rage and hurt that threatened to consume me. Through the window, I could see them on the patio now. David had his hand on Sophia's shoulder, and she was looking up at him with those doe eyes that had gotten her out of every speeding ticket and into every VIP section since we were 19. They thought they were being subtle, but I knew both of them too well. I knew the way David's jaw tightened when he was trying not to smile. I knew how Sophia played with her hair when she was flirting. I knew them, and I knew what I was seeing. The kitchen door swung open, and my sister Amy walked in, carrying a stack of paper plates. "Hey, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just tired," I lied, turning away from the window. "You know how it is." Amy set the plates down and studied my face. We'd always been close enough that she could read me like an open book. "Rachel, what's going on?" I opened my mouth to tell her everything, about the late nights, the suspicious behavior, the way David had started treating me like a roommate instead of a wife. But then I heard Sophia's laughter floating through the window, followed by David's lower chuckle, and something inside me snapped. "Nothing," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Nothing at all." But that wasn't true. Something was definitely going on. I just wasn't the only one with secrets. The baby shower continued around me in a blur of pastel decorations and forced smiles. I opened gifts mechanically, a diaper bag, a baby monitor, a mobile with dancing elephants that played Mozart. Each present felt like a prop in a play I never auditioned for, a life I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. When it was time to cut the cake, David materialized beside me, his hand settling on my lower back in a gesture that would have seemed loving to anyone watching. But I could feel the tension in his fingers, the way he barely touched me, like he was afraid I might contaminate him. "Smile, honey," he whispered in my ear, his breath warm against my neck. "Everyone's watching." I smiled. God help me. I smiled and cut that perfect pink cake while my marriage crumbled around me like stale confetti. But here's the thing about secrets. Everyone has them. And mine was about to change everything. The last guest left at 6:30, and the house felt like a crime scene. Pink streamers hung limply from the ceiling, and wrapping paper littered the floor like evidence of a happiness that had never really existed. I stood in the middle of it all, my hands resting on my swollen belly, watching David stack chairs with mechanical precision. "Great party," he said without looking at me. "Your mom really outdid herself with the decorations." I almost laughed. After 15 years of marriage, this was what we'd become. Polite strangers making small talk about party planning while our world fell apart. "David," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade, "we need to talk." He paused, a folding chair halfway to the closet. "About what?" "About Sophia." The chair slipped from his hands, clattering to the floor. For a moment, his mask slipped, and I saw something raw and guilty flash across his face before he composed himself. "What about her?" he asked, but his voice had lost its casual tone. "How long?" "Rachel, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Don't insult my intelligence. I saw you today. I've been seeing you for weeks, so I'm asking again. How long?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing. Now it just looked like a man trying to buy time while he figured out his next lie. "It's not what you think," he said finally. "It's exactly what I think." I moved closer, and he took a step back. "You're sleeping with my best friend while I'm pregnant with your child. In our house, at our baby shower. Did I miss anything?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, a lawnmower started up, the sound of normal suburban life continuing while mine imploded. "It just happened," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "It didn't mean anything." "It didn't mean anything," I repeated, tasting each word like poison. "Your affair with my best friend didn't mean anything? The woman who helped me pick out my wedding dress? The woman who held my hair back when I had morning sickness for 3 months straight? Rachel, please." "No." I held up my hand. "You don't get to please me. You don't get to make this about my feelings or my reaction. You made a choice. Multiple choices. Every single day for however long this has been going on." The baby kicked again, harder this time, and I winced. David moved toward me instinctively, then stopped himself. Even now, even in the middle of this conversation, he couldn't decide if he wanted to comfort me or run. "When did it start?" I asked. "Rachel, when?" He looked at the floor, at the ceiling, anywhere but at me. 3 months ago. 3 months. I was 5 months pregnant when he started cheating. When I was finally starting to show. When I was excited about nursery colors and baby names. When I thought we were building something beautiful together. "At the Hendersons' anniversary party," he continued, as if confessing might somehow make it better. "We were both drunk, and you'd gone home early because you weren't feeling well, and what? You accidentally fell into bed with her? It wasn't supposed to happen again. But it did. Yes." The simple honesty of that single word hit me harder than any elaborate lie could have. He wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. "Where?" I asked. "What? Where did you two have your romantic liaisons? Her apartment? Hotels? The back of your car like teenagers?" His jaw tightened. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me. Her place, mostly. Sometimes the office after hours." His office. The same office I'd visited last month to bring him lunch, where his secretary had complimented me on my pregnancy glow, while my husband was probably planning his next rendezvous with my best friend. Does anyone else know? No. God, no. "Rachel, we were careful." "Careful?" I laughed, and it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. "You were careful? You were groping her at my baby shower in front of 30 people. If that's your idea of careful, I'd hate to see reckless." He had the grace to look ashamed. "We got carried away." "You got carried away." I repeated his words, testing them. "At my baby shower. For your daughter. I'm sorry." 2 words. 15 years of marriage, 8 months of pregnancy, 3 months of betrayal, and all he could give me was, "I'm sorry." "Are you in love with her?" The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. David's face went pale, and I knew the answer before he spoke. "I don't know," he whispered. "You don't know." I felt something cold settle in my chest, pushing out the hurt and replacing it with something harder. "You're willing to destroy our marriage, abandon your pregnant wife, and traumatize our unborn child, but you don't know if you love her. It's complicated. It's really not." I moved to the couch and sat down heavily, my hand rubbing circles on my belly. "You either love her or you don't. You either want to be married to me or you don't. You either want to be a father to this baby or you don't. Nothing complicated about it. I do want to be a father, but you don't want to be my husband." He didn't answer, but his silence was answer enough. I closed my eyes, trying to process everything. The man I'd loved since college. The man I'd built a life with. The man whose child I was carrying. He was leaving me for my best friend. It was so cliché it was almost funny. Almost. "What happens now?" I asked. "I don't know." "Well, you better figure it out fast," I said, standing up. "Because I'm not doing this. I'm not playing the part of the understanding wife while you two figure out your feelings. I'm not pretending everything is fine for the sake of appearances. And I'm sure as hell not raising our daughter in a house where daddy is in love with mommy's best friend. Rachel, please. Can we just—" "No." I walked toward the stairs, then turned back. "I want you out of the house tonight. You can stay at your brother's or Sophia's or a hotel. I don't care. But you're not sleeping in our bed. This is my house too. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to burn it down." I climbed the stairs slowly, my hand on the banister, my heart pounding. Behind me, I could hear David moving around, probably gathering his things. The sound of my marriage ending in the rustle of clothes being stuffed into a suitcase. But here's what David didn't know. What nobody knew. I wasn't just a pregnant woman whose husband had betrayed her. I wasn't just a victim in this story. I was a woman with a secret that was about to change everything. The house felt different without David in it. Quieter, but not in a peaceful way. More like the silence after a storm, when you're not sure if the damage is done or if there's more destruction coming. I sat at the kitchen table the next morning, nursing a cup of decaf coffee and staring at the business card I'd been carrying in my wallet for 6 months. Marcus Chen, private investigator. I'd hired him back in February, when David's behavior first started seeming off, not because I wanted to catch him cheating, but because I needed to know if I was going crazy or if my instincts were right. Turns out, my instincts were better than I'd given them credit for. The file Marcus had given me was thick. Photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts, text message records. David and Sophia's affair was documented in excruciating detail, but that wasn't the most interesting part of the report. The most interesting part was what else Marcus had found. My phone buzzed. A text from Amy. "Are you okay?" David's car wasn't in the driveway when I drove by this morning. I typed back, "Long story. Can you come over?" "On my way." While I waited for my sister, I pulled out the second file Marcus had given me. This one was thinner, but far more explosive. David thought he was so clever, embezzling money from his company to fund his affair. Expensive hotels, jewelry for Sophia, weekend trips to wine country. He'd been skimming from client accounts for months, moving money around to cover his tracks. But here's the thing about having a sister who's a forensic accountant. You learn a few things about following money trails. The front door opened, and Amy walked in without knocking, carrying a bag of bagels and wearing the concerned expression she'd perfected during our mother's cancer treatment. "Okay, spill," she said, setting the bagels on the counter. "What happened?" I handed her the first file. Amy's eyes widened as she flipped through the photos. "Oh my God. Rachel, I'm so sorry. When did you find out?" "I've suspected for months. Had it confirmed yesterday at the baby shower." "At your baby shower?" Amy's voice climbed an octave. "That bastard." "Language," I said mildly. "There's a baby present." Amy looked at my belly, then back at the photos. "What are you going to do?" "That depends," I said, sliding the second file across the table. "Take a look at this." Amy opened the file and went very still. As a forensic accountant, she could read financial documents like most people read comic books. I watched her face change as she processed what she was seeing. "Holy shit," she whispered, then looked up at me. "Sorry, baby. But Rachel, this is embezzlement on a massive scale. I know. He's been stealing from his clients, from his own company, and using the money to wine and dine his mistress. Yes." Amy sat back in her chair, the file still open in front of her. "This is serious, Rachel. This is federal crime serious. Prison time serious." "I know. How long have you known?" "Marcus gave me the financial report 2 weeks ago. I've been trying to figure out what to do with it." "You mean you've been trying to figure out if you should turn your husband into the FBI?" "Something like that." Amy stared at me for a long moment. "Who else knows about this?" "Just Marcus, me, and now you." "Not David?" "David thinks he's a criminal mastermind. He has no idea anyone's been watching him." The baby kicked, and I shifted in my chair. 8 months pregnant, and my daughter was apparently as restless as I was. Maybe she could sense the tension, the way everything in our lives was about to change. "What about Sophia?" Amy asked. "Does she know where the money's coming from?" "I don't think so. She's shallow, but she's not stupid. If she knew he was stealing to impress her, she'd run. Sophia likes drama, but she draws the line at felonies. So what's the plan?" That was the million-dollar question. Literally. David had embezzled just over $1 million in the past year, routing it through various accounts to fund his new lifestyle. The affair was one thing, but the theft was something else entirely. "I haven't decided yet," I said. "Part of me wants to turn him in immediately. Let him face the consequences of his choices. And the other part? The other part remembers that I'm about to be a single mother and could use some leverage." Amy leaned forward. "What kind of leverage?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the text I'd drafted but not sent. It was addressed to David. "We need to talk. Come home at 7 p.m. Come alone. You're going to confront him? I'm going to give him a choice." "What kind of choice?" I closed the files and slid them back across the table. "The kind that'll make him wish he'd never met Sophia." Amy was quiet for a moment, processing everything. Then she looked at me with something like admiration. "You know, when we were kids, I always thought you were the nice sister, the one who never got in trouble, who always followed the rules." I did always follow the rules. And now, I smiled, and it felt sharp around the edges. Now I'm pregnant, betrayed, and holding evidence of a federal crime. The rules have changed. Amy laughed despite herself. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." Too late for David to learn that lesson. I sent the text to David and watched the 3 dots appear as he typed his response. "Okay, I'll be there." "Good," I said, setting the phone down. Because it's time he learned that I'm not just the pregnant wife he can discard. I'm the pregnant wife who's been 10 steps ahead of him this whole time. The baby kicked again, harder this time, and I rubbed my belly absently. "Don't worry, little one," I whispered. "Mommy's got this handled." Amy reached over and squeezed my hand. "Whatever you decide to do, I've got your back." "I know you do." I squeezed back. "But I think I can handle David on my own." After all, I'd been handling him for months. He just didn't know it yet. David arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, which told me 2 things. He was nervous, and he was still trying to maintain some semblance of being a responsible husband. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent the afternoon preparing for this conversation like I was preparing for war. The files were organized on the coffee table, my phone was charged and recording, and I'd even put on makeup and changed into a dress that didn't scream devastated pregnant woman. I wanted to look powerful, in control. I wanted him to remember what he was losing. "Rachel," he said as he walked into the living room, his eyes immediately going to the folders on the table. "What's all this?" "Sit down, David." He perched on the edge of the armchair as far from me as possible while still being in the same room. "Look, about yesterday." "This isn't about yesterday." I opened the first file. "This is about the last 6 months of your life." His face went pale as he recognized the photos. David and Sophia at the Marriott downtown. David and Sophia at that expensive seafood restaurant we'd talked about trying for our anniversary. David and Sophia at the vineyard in Napa, the same vineyard where he'd proposed to me 10 years ago. "Rachel, I can explain." "No need." I flipped to the next set of photos. Marcus Chen is very thorough. He got pictures, credit card statements, hotel receipts, even some interesting text messages. I pulled out a printed screenshot of a text exchange between David and Sophia. David's message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Brought you something special from Tiffany's." Sophia's response, "You spoil me. I love you so much. Looks like you two figured out that whole complicated feelings situation," I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. David's hands were shaking now. "How did you get these? Professional help. Turns out when you suspect your husband is cheating, there are people who can help you confirm it." I opened the second file. But that's not the interesting part. His eyes widened as he saw the financial documents. "Rachel, what is this? These are records of every penny you've stolen from your company over the past year, every client account you've skimmed from, every fraudulent transaction you've made to fund your affair." The silence in the room was deafening. David stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "I don't understand," he said finally. "Really? Because it's pretty straightforward. You've embezzled over $1 million, David. That's a federal crime. The kind that comes with prison time. That's not possible." "Oh, it's very possible. And it's very documented." I pulled out a thick stack of bank statements. Account transfers, wire transfers, cash withdrawals. All traced back to you. All happening on the same dates as your romantic getaways with Sophia. David's face had gone from pale to gray. "How do you know all this?" "Because I'm not stupid, David. I know when money is disappearing from our accounts. I know when you're spending more than you earn. I know when you're lying to me about working late while you're actually in Napa Valley buying my best friend a tennis bracelet." I held up a receipt. $15,000, by the way. For a tennis bracelet. I looked it up online. Very nice. I'm sure she'll treasure it when she's visiting you in federal prison. "Rachel, please. Here's what's going to happen," I said, cutting him off. "You're going to listen to me very carefully, and you're going to make a choice, because I'm done being the understanding wife, and I'm done pretending this is all going to work out somehow." I stood up, my hand resting on my belly. 8 months pregnant, and I'd never felt more powerful in my life. Choice number 1. I call the FBI tomorrow morning. I hand over all this evidence, and you spend the next 5 to 10 years in federal prison for embezzlement. Sophia probably disappears the minute she realizes her sugar daddy is a criminal, and you lose everything. Your job, your freedom, your reputation, your daughter. David's breathing was becoming shallow. "Rachel. Choice number 2. You confess to your company immediately. You work out a repayment plan with them. You resign from your position, but you avoid criminal charges. You also sign divorce papers giving me full custody of our daughter and 70% of all remaining assets." 70%? I'm feeling generous. Considering you've been stealing from your clients to buy jewelry for your mistress, I think 70% is more than fair. David ran his hands through his hair. "And if I choose option 2? Then I don't turn you in. You get to start over, hopefully with a better understanding of what choices have consequences." "What about Sophia?" I smiled, and it felt like ice. "What about her? Are you going to tell her about the money?" "That depends. Are you planning to continue your relationship with her?" David was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know." "Then let me help you decide." I pulled out my phone and showed him a text I'd already composed. It was addressed to Sophia. "Hey girl, just wanted to let you know that David's been funding your relationship with embezzled money. Thought you should know before you get too attached. Also, his wife is 8 months pregnant and knows everything. XOXO, Rachel." David's face went white. "You can't send that. Watch me." I hit send. My phone immediately started buzzing with incoming calls. Sophia's name flashed on the screen over and over. "Congratulations," I said, declining the call. "You just lost your mistress and your marriage in the same day. I hope those hotel rooms were worth it." David slumped forward, his head in his hands. "Rachel, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "But it did happen. And now you have to live with the consequences." "What about the baby? What about her? Will I be able to see her?" I looked at this man I'd loved for 15 years. This man who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, but a kind of tired acceptance. If you choose option 2, if you clean up your mess and get your life together, then yes, you can see your daughter. But you'll never be my husband again, and you'll never be welcome in my home again. David nodded slowly. And if I choose option 1, then you see her through prison glass. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Sophia. Call me right now, we need to talk. I showed David the message. Looks like your girlfriend wants to chat. Better hurry, before she figures out you're not quite the successful businessman she thought she was dating. David stood up slowly, like an old man. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow at noon. After that, I make the decision for you. He walked toward the door, then turned back. Rachel? What? I really am sorry. I know you are, David. But sorry doesn't undo what you've done, and it doesn't change what happens next. After he left, I sat in the quiet house, my hand on my belly, and felt my daughter kick. Strong, insistent kicks, like she was ready to come out and take on the world. Don't worry, baby girl, I whispered. Mommy's got everything under control. For the first time in months, that was actually true. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. David had chosen option 2, confessing to his company and working out a repayment plan that would keep him out of prison but in debt for the foreseeable future. He'd also signed custody papers giving me primary custody of our daughter, with supervised visitation rights for him. Sophia had disappeared from both our lives the day I sent that text. Apparently, dating a man who funded their relationship with stolen money was where she drew the line. David had tried calling her for days, but she'd blocked his number and moved to Portland to live with her sister. Love, it seemed, wasn't quite as strong as her self-preservation instincts. That's the last of it, my lawyer said, sliding the papers across the desk. Congratulations, Mrs. Morrison. You're officially divorced. Thank you, Patricia. I signed my name with a flourish. And it's Ms. Morrison now. Of course. Any regrets? I thought about it for a moment. Just one. I regret not doing this sooner. Patricia smiled. Most of my clients say that. The drive home was peaceful. David had moved out completely 2 weeks ago, taking only his clothes and a few personal items. He'd left everything else, the house, the furniture, the life we'd built together. I'd offered to let him take more, but he'd said he didn't want anything that reminded him of who he'd been. I understood that. I didn't want reminders either. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. I'd redecorated the nursery, replacing the pink and yellow color scheme with soft greens and whites. Gender neutral, hopeful, new. The baby was due in 2 weeks, and I was ready. My phone buzzed with a text from Amy. How did it go? It's official. I'm free. Good. Mom's making dinner tonight. You coming? Wouldn't miss it. And Rachel? Yeah? I'm proud of you. I smiled, one hand on my belly. Thanks. I'm proud of me too. That evening, surrounded by my family, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on other people's choices, but the solid kind that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life throws at you. So, what's next? My mother asked, passing me a second helping of her famous lasagna. Are you nervous about being a single mom? Sometimes, I admitted, but I figure if I can outsmart an embezzling husband and his mistress, I can probably handle a baby. My father laughed. That's the spirit. Though I have to say, I'm still impressed by how you handled the whole situation. Very strategic. I learned from the best, I said, raising my water glass to him. You always told me that knowledge is power. I just never imagined you'd use it to take down your own husband. Neither did I. But here we are. Later that night, after I'd gotten home and settled into bed, I felt the baby kick particularly hard. I placed my hand on my belly and spoke to her quietly. You know, little one, your daddy made some really bad choices. But that doesn't mean you're not wanted, and it doesn't mean you're not loved. You're going to have a great life, I promise. The baby seemed to settle at the sound of my voice, and I continued talking to her. Your Aunt Amy will spoil you rotten. Your grandparents will read you stories and teach you how to be strong. And I'll be here for everything. First steps, first words, first heartbreak. All of it. I paused, thinking about the future I was building for both of us. I'm going to raise you to be smart and strong, and to never let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. And I'm going to teach you the most important lesson I learned this year, that you can't control other people's choices, but you can control your own response to them. The baby kicked again, softer this time, and I smiled. I think you're going to be just fine, little girl. We both are. 2 weeks later, Eleanor Rose Morrison was born at 3:47 a.m., weighing 7 pounds, 2 ounces. She was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a set of lungs that could wake the dead. David was allowed to visit her in the hospital, and I watched him hold his daughter for the first time with a mixture of sadness and hope. "She's beautiful," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "She is," I agreed, "and she's going to have a good life." "Rachel, don't," I said gently. "This isn't about us anymore. This is about her. Just be the father she deserves, okay?" He nodded, unable to speak. 6 months later, I'm sitting in Elena's nursery, watching her sleep in her crib. She's got David's eyes but my stubborn chin, and she's already showing signs of having a personality that won't be easily subdued. The house is quiet, but it's a good quiet. Peaceful, full of possibility. Sometimes people ask me if I'm angry about what happened, if I regret how everything played out. The answer is complicated, but it's also simple. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Grateful that I found out who David really was before Elena was old enough to be hurt by it. Grateful that I had the strength to stand up for myself and my daughter. Grateful that I learned I'm capable of more than I ever imagined. And most of all, grateful that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Elena stirs in her sleep, and I reach down to adjust her blanket. She's going to grow up knowing she's loved, knowing she's worthy, knowing she's enough. She's going to grow up watching her mother build a life on her own terms. That's a gift I never expected to be able to give her, but it's the best one I've got. "Sweet dreams, baby girl," I whisper. "Tomorrow's going to be a good day." And for the first time in a very long time, I actually believe it.